how do you deal with this, the impact you generate in people who are in front of you, like me, like a journalist in Uruguay?
I'm thrilled that I can work on something for a year and write it and film it and do a lot of hard work on it, and that somebody appreciates it. So
Hmm.
that's why you do it. You don't do it. You do the first couple for the money because you're young and you need to make a living. But after many years, this was my 50th film. I do it for the pleasure of people like you seeing it and enjoying it. That's the only enjoyment I get out of it.
Do you know anything about Uruguay, about my country?
No, I don't know anything about anything. I don't know anything about anything south of America
Hmm.
or west of America or north of America. I lived my whole life in New York,
Hmm.
and only when I was in my 70s or 80 did I visit Canada very quickly. And that's on the border of the United States. I mean, you can drive right into
Hmm.
Canada.
Yeah.
And but I have no curiosity. I'm not a I'm not a curious person. My wife would love to travel all over South America, all over Hawaii and Thailand, and I have no desire to do any of that. I like to stay in my house and stay in a few neighborhoods around my house and not go anyplace.
Uh, I love the film. Thanks for
Thank
that.
you.
And I kept thinking, as you know, your bourgeois comedies, as a variation of Renoir's the rules of the game. But here is most precisely the hunt, the bad coincidence, the French. Was inevitable to go to Renoir or maybe Lubitsch, as always, that when you make a comedy like this in Paris?
Well, I was influenced with this particular film by the French Nouvelle Vague. So someone had said to me, was I influenced in this film in any way by Alfred Hitchcock?
Hmm.
And it's circuitous because I was influenced by the Nouvelle Vague. They were influenced by Hitchcock. So it would be Hitchcock to them to, and when I was just getting into film, the French directors, Claude Lelouch and Truffaut and Godard were all great heroes to us. We went to see the French cinema. It was very exciting in New York to see what they were doing. It was such a different kind of filmmaking and so energetic and so
Hmm.
innovative. And so when I made this film, I was thinking of the French directors of that time. I used the kind of jazz they used to use in their
Yeah.
movie and made it with that in mind when I was working.
Mhm. Thinking only in this period of your career in Rifkin Festival, A Rainy Day in New York, this one, is there in you a more accentuated tendency towards endearing lightness in your stories, in your these stories?
Towards lightness.
Lightness, or like you there are no bleak dramas like, I don't know, Blue Jasmine or Wonder Wheel, but you're like a more light comedies.
Well, that's my gift. That was always my sad misfortune when I started making films. My my tendency, my natural talent, whatever talent I had for making films, was light and comic and romantic and amusing, and
Hmm.
sometimes broadly comic, sometimes surreal comic. But my impulses always was wanting to make very dark, heavy films, and so I try and make them every now and then. They never make as much money as the comedy films. They never
Hmm.
get as big an audience as the comedy films, but there have been one or two that have worked for me. A Blue Jasmine worked very well for me. and Match Point worked very well for me as heavy films. Usually the lighter films, the comic films, are more engaging.
I was thinking about that this film is also a new film of you with Vittorio Storaro. Both of you are considered masters of cinema. How is the relationship between you and Storaro in the set?
Well, I've been lucky because my whole life, after I finished my first couple of films, when I didn't know what I was doing, I was just instinctively doing what I did. After I started to know more about films, I worked for years with only the best cinematographers. I worked for, 10 years with Gordon Willis, one of the greatest American cinematographers, and Vilmos Zsigmond and Carlo De Palma and Storaro, and one after the other. I just have worked with great cameramen, and it's always the same. I give them a script, they read it, we meet, we talk. They have ideas. I have ideas in my head about what I want to do. Sometimes their ideas are better than mine. Sometimes they're not, but more often they are better than mine. And we talk, and then we decide what the film is going to look like, the approach we're going to take, and then we get out there and make it. And once we're out there making it, we don't have to talk very much because we've already had that conversation, and we're both on the same page.
Talking about your films has a musicality, not only by the music you choose, but also of the way to talk, of the way of the dialogue. How that this movie is French in that world musicality, and how will it change if you film it in New York? How that musicality of the dialogue will change?
Well, it wouldn't change very much. Only the dialogue would change in translation, but it would be pretty much the same thing. When I originally wrote the film script for Match Point, I wrote it for New York, and I wrote all the places in there would be New York, and then when they called me and said that London would give me the money to make the film if I made it there, it took me 1 day, 2 days to take over the script and make it British. I had to shift very little, and the English people don't talk exactly the way Americans do, so I changed that, and instead of it taking place in Central Park, it would be in Hyde Park in London, but it's not hard.
Is there a city that you would like to be? A city that you would like to be the setting from some of your stories?
I like to be in cities that I can live in comfortably for 3-4 months. So I'm always happy to go to Paris. I'm happy to go to London, Venice. So these places are lovely places that people visit just to visit for the pleasure of going. And so I always would be happy making films certain places. Barcelona, they're wonderful places to film in. Rome I filmed in, but I would not like to make a film, even if someone would pay for it, I would not like to make a film in a place that I couldn't live in for 3-4 months. I wouldn't want to go to the Sudan and make a film, but any of those cities would be very pleasurable for me.
You have said that you have a lot of ideas that you make that never made it, drafts, scripts, things like that. I was thinking first and from there you select the material of your films. First, I want to know if that's true, and second, how many ideas are waiting in that vault?
I have many. I was just telling someone if I lived long enough and had the money, I could keep going and going and going and making films. But I don't have the money, and I won't live long enough to make all the ideas I have. I have many ideas for films, though. Ideas are cheap. It's what you do with them. It's what you how you develop them, the people you develop, and the stories. But I have many ideas for films, and I only wish I could maybe live to 150 or 200, and I could keep going.